need a gentle word. Softly sing your melody while the song is clearly heard. But should our minds begin to stray and our resistance fall, bring us back to your chosen path with a firm and loving call. Draw us back, Lord Jesus, with a voice we can't deny, when whispers cannot reach us. Lord, hold us with a cry. At times we forget to listen, then let your voice be heard. But speak to us gently, Lord Jesus, when we need a gentle word. Speak to us gently, Lord Jesus, when the tears begin to come. We've a tune within our hearts as we kneel before your throne. But when in darkness and in doubt we wander from the fold, draw us nigh with a shepherd's cry that will reach us through the cold. Draw us back, Lord Jesus, with a voice we can't deny, when whispers cannot reach us. Lord, hold us with a cry. At times we forget to listen, then let your voice be heard. But speak to us gently, Lord Jesus, when we need a gentle word. Speak to us gently, Lord Jesus, when we need a gentle
Happy Sabbath again, church. I want to say it's a wonderful day to be alive. It's the Sabbath, and I think all of us are healthy and seem healthy. We look beautiful. I did a colonoscopy this week, and it came out fine. I'm good. A friend of mine did his. That never turned out too well. He was diagnosed with cancer. But today is a day of Thanksgiving. I see that I got received two reports today, and one came from Cynthia and Brother James that says, praise the Lord. Thank you for your prayer. My brother James is doing excellent. After long surgery, the Lord is always with us. And Jim and Sandy Fedesenko says, praise God for Jim's brother recovering well from surgery that he had yesterday. So today is a day of Thanksgiving. We have a lot to give thanks for. Amen. So let us go to God in prayer as we give thanks and praise to him. If you can, please kneel with me. Oh God, we say thank you, Father, for all that you've done for us. We thank you for bringing us to church today to worship with our friends, our loved ones, and our brothers in Christ. We thank you, Lord, that you kept us in good spirits this week. You clothed us in our right minds this morning, and we are healthy here today. So we give you praise and glory and honor. And Father, as I just read about Jim's brother, thank you so much, Lord, for what you have done after long surgery. Father, as we go through this day, let us remember that today is a day that you set aside for every one of us to just praise your name and to worship you, Lord, and come away from our hectic week. Just to remember that you created this world, and one day, out of the 7 days, you gave us this day to worship you. Father, please be with the speaker of the hour. Help us, Father, that we may derive something from the words that you will put in his mouth. And Father, bless us throughout the rest of this day. In Jesus' most holy name. Amen.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
It's good to be a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, isn't it? To know that we have friends and family everywhere we go. Many of you probably know that the Grays are from Jamaica. What you probably don't know is that I was born in Jamaica. So I was with my Jamaican family this morning up here. It's neat, you know. Have family wherever we go. Our scripture reading today is taken from 1 Peter 2:9. 1 Peter 2:9. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Before we continue with the word, let's have one more prayer. Father, this morning we're going to open your word. We're going to ask that your Spirit speaks, that nothing from me is heard. but that I'll be a useful instrument here this morning, and that the message will be from you. We thank you for the blessings you pour out on us, and we look forward to receiving them. Amen. I want to start in kind of an odd place, I think. Maybe I'll give you a little background before we get there. It's in Judges. You can turn to Judges chapter 16. Judges chapter 16. If you know, you'll probably realize that that is going to be talking about Samson this morning. If you've read the book of Judges, which I'm sure you all have, or studied it, I consider it to be, I don't know if I want to say odd, if odd is the right word. Judges is somewhat of a difficult book to read. There's a lot of very interesting stories, but they're scary stories in some ways. Judges' time period was about 1400 BC to 1050 BC. And it was after the children of Israel obviously got into the land of Canaan. And when their leaders died off, like Joshua, right, and the high priest and those who had come out of the wilderness and came in to the land, the children of Israel apostatized, right? When they went into the land, they were told to drive out the people of the land, but the Lord didn't have them drive them out all at once, because then the land would have been overrun with wild animals and different things. But they didn't continue to drive them out as they got bigger. And what happened in Judges is the tribes were essentially separated from each other in many respects. And the people that they were supposed to have driven out, originally they enslaved some of them, but instead of teaching them the ways of God, they started worshiping their gods, right? And they became stronger, and the children of Israel became weaker. And the land was kind of cut up. There wasn't any central leadership. And so we have this book of Judges that goes through the various judges and tells these stories. And one of the worst stories in the Bible, I think, is in the book of Judges. The most heinous story almost that you can read. And I've thought about that story often, but I don't even know how to talk about it. So we're not going to talk about that one today. I want to talk about Samson today. I want to start in an odd place, maybe right at the end, in a verse. Then let's just read it. Judges 16:21. Because the title of the sermon today is, How Did We Get Here? It could have just as easily been, How Did I Get Here? I want you to think about those two as we talk today. You may have been in situations in your life where you thought, how did I get here? Or how did we get here? So I think that's probably what Samson would be thinking about right now. Judges 16:21, and the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza. They bound him with bronze fetters, and he became a grinder in the prison. Samson, the strongest man who ever lived, the judge of Israel. How did he get here? Well, let's look back. Turn back now to chapter 13, Judges chapter 13. Again, the children of Israel, verse 1, did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. And that's what Judges is all about. Judges would be raised up, people would repent for a while, then they would apostatize, then they would repent, and it was back and forth and back and forth. 40 years the Philistines had been ruling over them now. Now there was a certain man from Zorah of the family of the Danites whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Indeed, now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore, please be careful. Do not drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head. For the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Okay, so that's Samson's background. The angel of the Lord, you know who that is? Jesus. Jesus came to this woman, right, and gave her these instructions. These are the first prenatal instructions that we have that tell us what we know now, right? What the mother eats and drinks is important. We actually know now also that what the father eats and drinks is important. Prior to conception, Jesus comes down. Now that should give us hope and courage right there. We see Jesus intimately involved with his people, right? He led them out of Israel in the cloud. He talked to Joshua even before he led them out of Egypt. He was in the bush, the burning bush. He talked to Moses. As you go through the Old Testament, you see Jesus over and over again trying to be as close as he possibly can to us, his lost children. So he comes down and he gives Manoah's wife, we don't even get her name. He gives her these instructions: be careful what you eat and drink, no strong drink, nothing unclean, because you're going to conceive and you're going to have a son. And no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite. Now you have to look back to Numbers chapter 6 to see what the vow of the Nazarite was, but this child was going to be a Nazarite from birth. That wasn't always the case. You could take a Nazaritic vow, meaning you could vow for a certain period of time, just like we might fast and pray for a period of time. And there's basically three components to the vow. You wouldn't eat anything unclean or touch unclean. You wouldn't drink any strong drink or anything from the vine, meaning no grapes, no raisins, no grape juice. Okay? And then the third thing was what? You wouldn't cut your hair. Okay? Now, if you look at this and see, he told her the same things. She was a Nazarite during the pregnancy. But Samson was going to be born a Nazarite from birth. Okay? Now she runs and she tells her husband, who wasn't there, and as we read through the chapter, he's like, well, who was it? What did he say? And she tells him, and he's like, I don't know. So he prays to the Lord, come back, tell us again. And how merciful is the Lord? Because he answers Manoah's prayer, and he comes back, but he comes back again to his wife. Only this time she says, wait, I've got to go get my husband. And she goes and gets Manoah, and he comes back, and he says, what? Verse 11, so Manoah arose and followed his wife. When he came to the man, he said to him, are you the man who spoke to this woman? And he said, I am. Manoah said, now let your words come to pass. What will be the boy's rule of life and his work? Now it's interesting here, Marcherie pointed this out to me. When he says, now let your words come to pass, he is saying what? I believe what you're saying. Tell me. Again, so that we do this right. So the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, of all that I've said to the woman, let her be careful. And he reviews the things. He's going to be a Nazarite. He's not going to cut his hair. He's not to drink any strong drink. He's not to touch anything unclean. So this is good, because look, we go through that and go to the two last verses in the chapter, 24 and 25. So the woman bore a son and called his name Samson, and the child grew, and the Lord blessed him. Sounds like a verse in Luke about Jesus, for he grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man, right? The child grew, and the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him at Manadan between Zorah and Eshtaol. All right. Now, if you don't know the story of Samson right now, you should be getting really excited because look at this. God himself came down, gave them instructions on how they were to raise this young man. And he was raised right. And now we see God is moving on him to start his work. So he's of age. We don't know how old he was at this point, but it's got to be late teens or early 20s, possibly 30s. Sometimes that's when Jesus started his ministry and John the Baptist started his ministry. The Spirit moved on him. So get ready. This is going to be exciting. Look at chapter 14. We are going to see great things happen. Chapter 14. Now Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. So he went up and told his father and mother, saying, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me as a wife. Then his father and mother said to him, Is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren and among all the people that you must go and get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she pleases me. But his father and mother did not know that this was of the Lord, that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines, for at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. How did we get here? Mrs. White said is that Manoah's family was true to God. They were one of the few households that amid the general defection had remained true to Jehovah. Had Samson obeyed the divine commands as faithfully as his parents had done, he would have been had a nobler and happier destiny. But associations with idolaters corrupted him. The town of Zorah was on the edge of the tribe of Dan. And what did I say? There was pockets of Philistines. The main Philistine cities, were Ashkelon, Gath, Ekron. They were on the coast. They were a little further away. But there were Philistine towns all around. So Timnah was only a few miles away. And what does it say at the beginning? Samson went down. It was down. We've talked about Jonah. He arose and went down away when God called him. So because of these associations, he wants a Philistine wife. Now I'm going to say something here now that I think you'll agree with me, at least if you don't now by the end, is Samson didn't want to be a Seventh-day Adventist. He was born and raised, but he didn't want to be a Seventh-day Adventist. Now you might say, look at verse 4. I'd like to skip over verse 4 because that one can be a little sticky if we just read over it and don't talk about it. What does it say? His father and mother didn't know that this was of the Lord. He was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. So it's okay because this was of the Lord, right? I don't think so. Was it okay when Abraham married Hagar because the Lord had promised him that he was going to have many descendants? Or how about when Jacob cheated Esau out of the birthright that Jacob was going to get because the Lord had promised him? Was the word of the Lord the problem? The word of the Lord said it would happen. So this is the same type of thing. Now the Lord has to not only save his people, but he's got to save Samson. Samson loves the Philistines. He likes what they eat. He likes the things that they do. He wants to live with them. So the Lord can use this, and he does. So Samson goes down. You know the story. He picks his wife. He insists that he gets her. And he's going down to make arrangements, and what happens? He gets attacked by a lion. And you'll notice that when he gets attacked, it says the Spirit of the Lord came on him. And he rips apart this lion like it's a little kid or just a small animal. Throws it off the side of the road, makes arrangements. Now at this time you would pay a dowry or at least make arrangements, and then you would come back at a later time with the dowry and have the wedding and the wedding feast, right? So he does that, and that period of time could be months up to, they say up to even 10 months. So as we come back to the story, months later, when Samson is coming back for the wedding feast, he's coming into town and he thinks, I wonder what's going on with that lion I killed, right? He goes off in the bushes and he finds the carcass. By now it should just be kind of skeleton, because bees won't make a home in a contaminated area. At least that's what I've heard. So it should have been picked clean, dry bones, honeybees hanging there, and he gets the honey and he scoops it out and he eats it, and he takes some to his parents. Now what's the problem with that? Honey. He's unclean because it was a dead animal, right? So he goes down, they have the wedding feast, and this is not a Jewish or a Hebrew wedding feast. This is a Philistine wedding feast, right? He's got to do things and have a party and stuff for the people there. Now they supplied him with attendants, which is kind of unusual. 30 attendants and a best man instead of bringing your own. Historians think that's because they were already worried about Samson and his strength, and they were really there to watch him. And so you would drink, you would eat, you would play games, you would dance, but also in that custom they liked to tell riddles and stump each other. So Samson, he's got the perfect riddle. And so he says to his 30 attendants, "Here, let me tell you a riddle. And at the end of the feast, if you can give me the answer, I'll give you 30 changes of clothes, nice clothes. And if you can't," which he knows they can't, "I will get 30 from you." And they're like, "Oh, this is a good deal." Sure. So here's the riddle. Out of the eater came something to eat. This is verse 14, chapter 14. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. Now for 3 days they could not explain the riddle. They were thinking long and hard, and there was no way that they were going to lose, right? So you know the rest of the story. They threatened Samson's wife. "If you don't tell us," and it wasn't like a benign threat, "if you don't tell us, we're going to kill you." And so she begs and begs and begs, and finally Samson says, "I haven't even told my parents, but you're driving me crazy. I'll tell you." And so he tells her the answer to the riddle, and she immediately goes and tells them. And they come in all smug and smiling and say, "Samson, what's sweeter than honey? And what's stronger than a lion?" Now this next thing that Samson says, if you're a young man in a relationship or newly married, don't ever use this line. "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle." It's not going to work. But you see the point. He knows he's been cheated. He knows what they did. He was deceived. And what does it say? Verse 19. "The Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily." Samson is doing what? He's marrying a heathen. He's engaged in drinking strong drink. And he's unclean. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, so he goes down to Ashkelon and kills 30 men. You'll see that Samson has a temper. He comes back, he strips them of their clothes, he gives the 30 attendants their clothes, and he's mad. leaves his wife and goes home. And we don't know how long he went home for. It looks like it was a period of weeks, maybe even a couple of months. But he comes back, chapter 15. After a while, in the time of wheat harvest, it happened that Samson visited his wife, and he brings her a gift, which is nice, right? He comes back, he brings her a young goat, and he said to her father, "Let me go to my wife in her room." But her father would not permit him to go in. Her father said, "I really thought you thoroughly hated her. Therefore, I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister better than she? Please take her instead." Well, what did I say? Samson had a temper? Samson says, "This time I'll be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them." And he was pretty ingenuitive, because he's like, "I'll fix them." The time of the wheat harvest was by time the wheat harvest was at the end of the dry season. So this is the driest time of the year. If the wheat's already been cut, and stacked, it's dry. If it's in the fields, it's dry. The vines, the grapes, everything is dry. And so he goes and he catches 300 foxes. The Bible says the exact same word, foxes, can be translated foxes or jackals. Some people think it's jackals because jackals run in groups, and a lot easier to catch 300 jackals. But either way, it's still pretty miraculous. I don't know how you catch foxes or jackals, either one, to say nothing of 300 of them. But he must have done it pretty rapidly too, because, if I was going to do it, it'd take me several months probably. He did it all in a night or two. And you can just see these animals running through the fields, their tails on fire, and everything is going up in flames. Well, you can imagine the Philistines wanted to know why that happened. And so they came back to find out. And what did they hear? Verse 6, "Who has done this?" And the answer is Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion. So the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. So now, Samson says, "Since you do a thing like this, I will surely take revenge on you, and after that, I will cease." So he attacked them, hip and thigh, with a great slaughter. Then he went down and dwelt in the cleft of the rock of Edom. Now, the Philistines, they weren't very happy about that, were they? So they go after Samson. And the rock of Edom is in Judah. And they come up with a big force to Judah. And the tribe of Judah says, "No, you're not taking him. He's one of us, right?" No, not at all. The men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" So they answered, "We came up to arrest Samson, to do to him as he has done to us." So 3,000 men of Judah, they're afraid of Samson too. They go down to the cleft of the rock of Edom and said to Samson, "Do you know that the Philistines rule over us? What is this you have done to us?" And he said to them, "As they did to me, so I have done to them." So now he has to bargain with the men of Judah. "I will go, but you have to promise not to kill me." So they do. They promise not to kill him, but they're going to deliver him to the Philistines. Patriarchs and Prophets, Mrs. White said, "Had the Israelites been ready to unite with Samson and fall upon the victory," we haven't gotten to the victory yet, "they might at this time have freed themselves from the power of their oppressors. But they had become dispirited and cowardly. They had neglected the work which God commanded them to perform in dispossessing the heathen, and had united with them in their degrading practices, tolerating their cruelty, and so long as it was not directed against themselves, even countenancing their injustice. When themselves brought under the power of the oppressor, they tamely submitted to the degradation which they might have escaped had they only obeyed God. Even when the Lord," now listen to this, "even when the Lord raised up a deliverer for them, they would not infrequently desert him and unite with their enemies." Wow. Even when the Lord raised up a deliverer. So that's what they were doing. They were deserting Samson and uniting with their enemies. How did we get there? Now, the Bible says that all that was told of old is for our benefit in the last days, right? That's 1 Corinthians. Do you see this today? I know most of you here can probably remember, like I can, when I was young and we'd travel on vacation or go somewhere, almost any church we went to was the same. The Sabbath school, the doctrines. You didn't worry about it. There might be a good speaker or a not as good speaker, right? But now we go to church based on what flavor we like, right? What music we want, what the speaker tells us that we want to hear. In Judges, there's a couple of places in Judges it says, every man did what was right in his own mind. Correct? That's the problem. Every man did what was right in his own mind. Every man did not do what was according to the Word of God. Do you see that in the world today? And unfortunately, in our church today? It's your truth. You have to live according to your truth. The Bible says, the Lord is good. His mercy endures forever. And His truth is everlasting. Right? It's not my truth. It's not your truth. His truth is everlasting. But as we see this, we see, what a merciful God. Why is He putting up with this? Okay, so they say, Samson says, what? Tie me up with some ropes, some new ropes, take me down there. And they do. Look, we got to get them out of here. The Philistines are going to bother us. We just like it the way it is. Lord, don't deliver us. We're happy the way we are. So he gets down there, the Philistines. Look at verse 14. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines came shouting against him. Yay! Victory! We have him. What does it say? The Lord came mightily upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became like the flax that is burned with fire, and his bonds broke loose from his hands. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey. He reached out his hand and took it and killed 1,000 men with it. They were running for fear. And what did Mrs. White say? If they already had 3,000 men there, if they would followed up on this victory. But Judah was like, nothing to do with it. Oh no, now what? But look what Samson says. What did it say? The Spirit of the Lord came upon him and he did this great thing. And Samson says, look at his song. It's a song here, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps with the jawbone of a donkey. I have slain 1,000 men. Ooh. I have slain 1,000 men. So I like to think right here is where the Spirit left him temporarily. Because verse 18 says, then he became very thirsty, so he cried out to the Lord and said, you have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant. He needed a little reminder, right? He says, I am so thirsty, I'm going to die. And you're like, oh yeah, thank you, God, for this deliverance that you have brought. And now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? So here you did, you gave me this great victory, and now you're going to let me die. That's appreciation for you, isn't it? But what does God do? So God split the hollow place that is in Lehi, and water came out, and he drank, and his spirit returned. And he revived. Therefore he called its name En-Hekor, which is in Lehi to this day. And he judged Israel 20 years in the days of the Philistines. I like to think that taught him a lesson, right? 20 years. Now, Bible scholars don't know if that was just the total period of his judgment and how things, went in the timeline. But it looks like now as we get into chapter 16 that this is towards the end of the 20 years, especially Samson and Delilah, because that's the end of his life, right? But unfortunately, you get the idea that during this time, there was just kind of a stalemate. Samson was strong enough, the Philistines respected him enough, which is pretty obvious from the story, that they weren't going to attack the children of Israel, but they were waiting. And they were going to do everything they could when they got the chance. So we have one more short story before we get to the last one, in the first 3 verses of 16, and this is pretty amazing. Now Samson, and Samson's name means servant or minister. It can also mean son. So Samson, who was brought into this world to be a servant minister of Jesus and the people that he was supposed to help save, right? Servant minister. What does he do? He goes down to Gaza. Now Gaza was probably the biggest city of the 5 main Philistine cities at that time, and that was quite a ways away considering where Timnah and some of these other places were. So he sees a harlot there, and he went into her. Doesn't look like Samson's changed much over the years. When the Gazites were told, Samson has come here, they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the gate of the city. They were quiet all night, saying, "In the morning, when it is daylight, we will kill him." And Samson lay low till midnight. Then he arose at midnight, took hold of the gatepost, pulled them up, bar and all, put them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. Spirit of prophecy tells us that his conscience was bothering him. So he woke up, decided, I'm going to go home. Now I want to show you a short video clip here, if we can. This man is Patrick Babonian. He's a German power lifter. He holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the heaviest, they call it a yoke carry, which I don't remember exactly. It's over 1,200 pounds for about 33 feet. Now, there is actually a man who has done more. This was back in 2013. I don't know if you can play that, just a few seconds of it. I just want you to see that. Go up to, yeah, that's good, okay. So, that's, 1,200-1,300 pounds. So there is someone now who's done over 1,500 pounds. I'm showing you Patrick because he's a vegan. He was vegetarian before that. People say you can't be strong and be a vegetarian or vegan. But people have tried to calculate. I was kind of interested because, how big are these gates? What are we talking about here? We're talking about 1,400 pounds, right? Well, the gates probably in Gaza and the cities at that time, they know from archaeological digs that they would probably be about 10 feet tall and 10 feet wide, and they would be 18 inches to 36 or so inches thick, right? They did have nails. So many of the gates, especially since Gaza was one of the bigger cities, would also be bronze coated. And that's so that you couldn't hack through them as easily with an axe or burn them as easily. But if you take the least weight without any bronze coating and only 18 inches thick instead of the 3 feet, they figured the least amount of weight would be 5,000 pounds. But almost certainly it would have been 10 to 20,000 pounds. And that's not all. He lifted him on his shoulders and he carries him up to this hill. Now this was 33 feet or so, right? Again, there's argument and debate about did he just carry him up the hill going towards Hebron, or did he carry him all the way to the hill that overlooks Hebron? That's 33 to 36 miles. When the Spirit of the Lord comes upon you, he can use you, right? verse 4. And after it happened, he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. Now, Mrs. White says Delilah means the consumer. So Samson, the servant minister, joins up with Delilah, the consumer. People assume she's a Philistine, and that's what most people think. Some people think that's maybe unlikely. She was probably an Israelite, living in one of the between towns. That would have been mixed. And they think this because, just like in the first story, when Samson's wife didn't do, or if she didn't do what they wanted to do, they were going to kill her. But in this case, they bribed Delilah. I think if she was a Philistine, they would have just threatened her. If you don't do it, we're going to kill you. But here they bribe her. They bribe her with 1,100 shekels of silver from each of the lords of the 5 major cities, 5,500 silver shekels. It's hard to figure out how much that is in today's money, but most likely a shekel would have at least been a day's wage. So we're talking about over 15 years of labor at that time that she was bribed with. She was very diligent. You can see, very diligent about her mission. So they come up, they bribe her. So Delilah, verse 6, chapter 16, says, "Please tell me where your great strength lies, and what you may be bound to afflict you." The Philistines knew, although the source was wrong, it felt like this was some type of talisman spell he had, that if they could figure out what it was, if they could break it, then they could overcome him. Tell us the secret. So she asked him. He says, "Bind me with new bowstrings, and I'll be as weak as anyone." So she binds him, and what does he do? He breaks free, and they can't get it. Oh, man. So that makes her upset. "Come on, you don't love me. Tell me." "Well, bind me with new ropes, and I'll be as weak as anyone else." She binds him with ropes. That doesn't work. Wakes up, takes out the Philistines that are there. The third time, we're getting closer, right? He had 7 braids of hair. 7's a perfect number. He says, "Well, if you braid my hair," we're getting a little closer. We've gotten to his hair now. "Braid my hair in a loom," right? What is he doing? Inch by inch, or maybe giant step by giant step. He is moving further and further away from what his calling was. Well, that didn't work. He wakes up, tears his hair out of there, and free again. At some point, you get the idea that maybe Samson is beginning to believe that he is actually the source of his own power. Or maybe he's just so tired of being peculiar. Because after she nags and she nags, he says what? She's saying, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times and have told me not told me where your great strength lies." And it came to pass when she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death. Right? Samson, no one's forcing you to stay there. Why are you there? Day after day. And he told her all his heart. He told her everything. "No razor has ever come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb." Now here's the thing about the Nazarite vow. If during the vow period you broke the vow accidentally, like it says in Numbers 6, if somebody died and hit you or you were unclean, what you would do is you would shave your head and start over. There was other things. You had to do sacrifices and things like that. But there was a process, right? You would shave your head and you would start over. You would reconsecrate yourself. "If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I will become weak and be like any other man." She knew. She knew he had told her this time. When Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up once more, for he has told me all his heart." So the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought the money in their hand. Then she lulled him to sleep on her knees, called for a man, and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. She began to torment him, and his strength left him. Isn't that the way sin is? Come on. I've got so much good for you. You're going to have fun. This is going to be great. And when it has you, what does it do? Then she began to torment him. She had to torment him, though, because the Philistines weren't willing to come out of their hiding places until they knew that this time he was truly weak. So she's proven it. Even a woman, I can make fun of him now. So he woke from his sleep, and he says, "I'll go out as before." And he tries to shake himself free, but he can't. And we get back to the verse we started with. Blind, grinding. Now he has a lot of time to think. He can think about those Philistine maidens that he loved so much, right? They probably came to see him still too. Laugh, maybe spit at him while he's pushing that grinder around, but now he can't see what's going on. Mrs. White says, "What a change to him who had been the judge and champion of Israel. Now weak, blind, in prison, degraded to the most menial service. Little by little, he had violated the conditions of his sacred calling." How? Little by little, he had violated the conditions of his sacred calling. God had borne long with him, but when he had so yielded himself to the power of sin as to betray his secret, the Lord departed from him. There was no virtue in his long hair merely, but it was a token of his loyalty to God. It was the last token that he had of his loyalty to God. And when the symbol was sacrificed in the indulgence of passion, the blessings of which it was a token were also forfeited. I'm sure he was wondering, how did I get here? Is there anything in your life that you look back on and you think, how did I get here? How did we get here? I wonder every day now. We have medical meetings now at Adventist hospitals where they have a bar, right? How did we get here? We go to churches where pastors say, I don't know when Jesus is coming. It could be soon, it could be 100 years, it could be 300 years. How did we get here? Churches who don't want to hear the word, they don't want to hear the spirit of prophecy. They don't want to be a peculiar nation, God's own special people. Well, what did we say? God is merciful. Samson had time to repent. And he did in those long hours, those weeks, those months. We don't know exactly how long it was. But he had time to repent. And he did. But I want you to look at something with me here. Because as I relate this story to my story and to our story, what is the symbol that we have that we're holding on to as Seventh-day Adventists that sets us apart, that makes us peculiar more than anything else? Let me help. The time is not far distant when the test will come to every soul. The observance of the false Sabbath will be urged upon us. The contest will be between the commandments of God and the commandments of men. Those who have yielded step by step to worldly demands and conform to worldly customs will then yield to the powers that be, rather than subject themselves to derision, insult, threatened imprisonment, and death. We will not be, if we are like this, we will not be peculiar people. I pray that my brethren may realize that the third angel's message means much to us and that the observance of the true Sabbath is to be the sign that distinguishes those who serve God from those who serve Him not. She also says that we don't worship it in the Sabbath the way that we should. We have lost the worship of the Sabbath. But here, at the time of the end, we are going to be faced with this same issue. Samson had a symbol of his bond to God, right? We as an Adventist church are a peculiar people for many reasons, but we're especially peculiar because we believe that God is the creator. We believe that He created us not over long periods of time, but in 6 literal days, and that He rested on the Sabbath day. And that He set that day up as a memorial to us. And if we had kept, we as a people, and from the beginning, if the Sabbath had been kept, Mrs. White says, what? There would never have been an idolater. But what do we have to do? And we don't, think about it. I hope you haven't, but I can remember times in my life when I have thought, man, I can't do this on Sabbath. I can't do this Friday night. You ever thought that? How did I get there? Sabbath? Can't do that. Oh, poor me. How did I get there? Creator of the universe said, I want to be with you on Sabbath. I want to be with you every day, but I especially want to be with you on Sabbath. And you can see in our church, how did we get here? Because what do we do on Sabbath? Some of us still go to church. Many don't. What do we do Sabbath afternoon? I'm not talking to you about things you might have done. I'm looking at me and things that I have done. God has called us to be a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a peculiar people. It's peculiar to worship on the Sabbath day, right? I believe time is very short where this is going to be the issue. All you have to do is look around. Look at the green passport. You know about the green passport? Right now in Israel, if you don't have a vaccine for COVID, you can't go to stores, you can't travel, can't buy anything. You may have money in your account, just can't use it. Now maybe they have Amazon, that'll maybe get you by for a little while. You can have it delivered to your doorstep. Arsha was telling me that in Hawaii they're going to have the green passport, so you can't go to Hawaii unless you have your vaccine. Right? We control this. Why is it called green passport instead of like a red passport? Don't you think a virus should be red? I think it's because of the environmental movement, right? You don't have to go to conspiracy theorists. You can go straight to the Pope and other people that say, we are going to have a day of rest. There's multiple countries already, along with the green passport, that are saying and doing, have implemented that they have a curfew from Sabbath at noon to Monday morning. Step by step. Now here is the amazing thing. As I look at Samson's story here, I know there's hope for me. You see hope? So I don't know where you are. Hopefully you're not like Samson. Praise the Lord. But if you are, there's hope. And when Samson was converted, and by faith, he prayed to the Lord, right? And what did he do? He destroyed the main leaders of the Philistines, right? In his death. But oh, what a life it could have been if used for the Lord instead of for the world. Probation hasn't closed for us. The issue of the Sabbath day, I believe, is soon to come, but not yet. God's mercy endures forever. Now is the time. If we've made those steps, now is the time to wake up. So I'm going to invite you today that if you want to recommit yourself to say, Lord, I want to be your true, faithful servant. The Lord can work through you. You can do great things and not be of the Lord. Right? Samson was not of the Lord. He did amazing things. What did the Lord say? Samson will be used to start to overthrow the Philistines. Did God's word come true? God's word always comes true. One way or another. Are we going to be used by the Lord for good, by our consent, or are we just going to be used by Him regardless? Now that makes it sound like He forces us. He doesn't. But by our choices, we decide what's going to happen. The time is now. If you'd like to recommit yourself this morning, I'd invite you to stand with me as we have our closing prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you that you're a loving God, that you're a merciful God, that we can turn to you for forgiveness at any time. But we are a stiff-necked and hard generation, Lord. We pray that your Spirit will change us, that we will see how much you love us, and that our heart's desire will be to demonstrate that love in our lives, to return that love to you and to all that you bring in contact with us, Lord. Thank you for these amazing stories in the Bible. We can only scratch the surface as we go through them. We can't wait for the day, Lord, and I believe it's very soon, where we will be listening to stories that you tell us, sitting at your feet. Lord, may that day be soon. Amen.
Please join me with hymn number 456, My Lord and I.